God doesn't get tired of carrying what's too heavy for you. He gets closer.
That's the kind of love we forget when we're in the thick of it. When life is loud, when pressure mounts, when your strength is scattered across 100 silent battles, your instinct might be to carry more, fix faster, push harder. But grace was never about earning. It was always about surrender. If you've come to the end of yourself today, then maybe you're finally at the place where God can begin. This isn't weakness. This is invitation. Because what you can't handle on your own was never meant to be your burden alone. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is let go. You were not meant to carry it all. You weren't created to be everyone's hero. You weren't born to control every outcome, solve every problem, anticipate every crisis. And yet so many walk through life holding their breath, carrying not just their own weight, but the weight of everyone else's expectations, disappointments, fears, and failures. No wonder your soul feels tired in places sleep can't reach. There's a reason Jesus didn't say, "Come to me, all who are strong and self-reliant." He said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That's in Matthew 11:28, and it's not a poetic suggestion, it's a divine offer. The kind of rest that doesn't just touch your body but quiets your soul. But it only comes when we admit what we often avoid. We are not limitless. The world has trained us to believe that exhaustion is noble, that burnout is a badge, that having no margin is the price of meaning. But God's design is not hustle, it's holiness. It's not about doing everything, it's about doing the right things, with the right heart, under the right authority, His authority. Charles Spurgeon once said something that has echoed through generations of weary believers. Our anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow, but only empties today of its strength. Worry depletes us of what little focus and hope we have. It makes you live 2 days at once, today and the version of tomorrow you're trying to control. But you're not God. And that's not an insult, it's freedom. You're not failing by setting something down. You're finally starting to live as if you trust the one who promised to carry it. So what do we do with the anxiety, the fear, the ache of responsibility we feel over everything we can't control? Barbara Johnson gave us this reminder. Worry is a conversation you have with yourself about things you cannot change. Prayer is a conversation you have with God about things He can. There's a line between human responsibility and divine intervention. Prayer is where that line lives. But most of us are standing in the wrong place, trying to do both. Even as you listen right now, your mind may be darting toward that one person you can't fix, that deadline you might miss, that storm you feel unprepared to weather. The weight is real, but it's not yours alone. Some burdens only make sense in the hands of the one who sees the full picture. Some situations will never heal until you stop playing savior and start trusting the actual one. Maybe you've been holding your breath, waiting for the moment when everything finally becomes easier. But what if that moment isn't about circumstances changing, but about your posture changing? What if peace doesn't come when the pressure ends, but when your soul exhales in surrender? Because until you decide to release what's not yours to hold, you will continue carrying what's never going to serve you. There's a cost to holding too tightly. It shows up in your relationships, in your body, in your faith. When you're trying to control everything, you trust nothing, not God, not others, not even yourself. And that fear, however justifiable it feels, will always shrink your life down to what you alone can manage. But God didn't design you to live within your own limits. He didn't gift you faith so you could still rely only on logic. He didn't place dreams in your heart so you could live with a clenched jaw and a tired spirit. He gave you His Spirit so that even when you're overwhelmed, you'd know where to turn. 1 Peter 5:7 says, "Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you." That's not flowery theology. That's an act of survival. It means waking up each day and saying, "This part is bigger than me. God, take it." It means writing down that fear, whispering it into your prayer, laying it at the foot of the cross where it no longer has to define your day. And yes, there will still be noise. There will still be unanswered prayers, unfinished conversations, unresolved issues. But you'll begin to experience a sacred kind of strength, the ability to keep walking without carrying it all. This is not about irresponsibility. It's about recognizing where your responsibility ends and God's sovereignty begins. And that's the line we often blur. We think letting go means giving up, but in heaven's language, letting go is trust in motion. It's the release that opens your hands for what's next. And until your hands are open, they are too full to receive anything new. So what would it look like for you today to release one thing, just one? The outcome of a conversation, the worry about someone else's behavior, the guilt about a past mistake. Not because it doesn't matter, but because holding it is crushing you. Sometimes the most holy thing you can do is breathe out what's been sitting heavy in your soul and speak this simple truth aloud. I was never meant to carry this. You are allowed to be human. You are allowed to feel weak, but you are not meant to stay stuck in a cycle of performance and self-reliance. You're allowed to trust that the God who holds galaxies is also holding your fragile pieces and doing it far better than you ever could. If you feel like the ground beneath you is giving way, maybe that's not failure. It's grace shaking loose what wasn't meant to stand. Maybe it's God's way of pulling your attention away from what you've been trying to build without Him. Maybe, just maybe, your limits are not the enemy. They're the very place God has been waiting to meet you. You're not alone in this moment. You're not wrong for being tired, but you are invited. Invited to lay down what you've been quietly carrying for too long. Let this be the day you trade exhaustion for trust. Let this be the beginning of surrender, not the end of hope. Because whatever you're holding that feels too heavy, He's already reaching for it. And He's not tired of you. He's drawing closer. Trust is not passive. It's power and surrender. There is a kind of trust that looks still from the outside but roars like a lion on the inside. A kind of trust that isn't weak or passive, but fully alive, stubborn in the best way. It refuses to let fear have the last word. It doesn't wait for every question to be answered. It just steps forward anyway, one foot trembling in front of the other, believing that even if you can't see what's next, God is already standing there. The world often equates trust with naivety, as if choosing to trust in something bigger than yourself means you've given up thinking critically or navigating wisely. But the truth is, genuine trust isn't thoughtless, it's intentional. It's a decision to stop worshiping your fears and start anchoring your heart in something more eternal. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase." And that's exactly what trust requires. Not a full map, not the approval of everyone around you, not even a guarantee that the road will be smooth. It only asks for your willingness to move forward while knowing you might be walking with a limp, a question, or a heavy heart. Because trust is not the absence of struggle, it's the presence of hope within it. This kind of trust doesn't eliminate uncertainty, it simply redefines it. It tells your anxious heart, even if I don't know how this ends, I know who holds the ending. That shift alone can take a soul from panicking to praying, from striving to surrendering. And surrender isn't silence, it's courage. It takes tremendous strength to lay down your weapons, especially when you've grown up believing that fighting harder is the only way to win. But what if the battle isn't yours? What if the moment you stop swinging is the moment God steps in? We're not trained to think that way. From childhood, we're told to figure it out, to try harder, to push through. Surrender doesn't feel like victory in the beginning. It feels like failure. And yet, the most powerful moments in Scripture often began when someone fell to their knees, not when they stood tall with a plan. In 1 Peter 5:7, we're told to cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. And that word, cast, it isn't gentle. It implies force, movement. It doesn't say place your anxiety or share it. It says throw it. Toss it fully into the arms of the one who can actually do something about it. That's not passive faith, that's active trust. And here's something we often forget. Trust isn't always a feeling. It's a decision that sometimes has to be made long before your emotions catch up. There will be days when your heart is still racing, your fears are still screaming, and your circumstances haven't shifted an inch, but you choose trust anyway. That's faithfulness. That's power. That's spiritual maturity. Charles Spurgeon once wrote, "To trust God in the light is nothing, but to trust Him in the dark, that is faith." Anyone can say they believe when everything is going well, but when the lights go out, when the path disappears, when the plan falls apart, what happens then? If your peace depended on outcomes, it was never peace at all. Real peace is built on something deeper. It's built on the character of God, not the condition of your life. This is where so many get stuck. They think surrender means waiting passively, but surrender actually requires constant movement, obedience, even when you don't understand, faithfulness, even when results are slow, forgiveness, even when pain lingers. It's not a posture of defeat. It's a practice of trust. You may be listening right now and wondering how to begin that kind of surrender, how to stop overthinking, how to stop replaying what went wrong or what might go wrong. And the truth is, it won't happen all at once. Surrender is often moment by moment, breath by breath. It's not just something you do once, it's something you grow into. Start here. Stop asking yourself to carry what only God can. That mental load you've been juggling, the what ifs, the regrets, the fears about tomorrow, it's not yours to organize. It's too complex, too heavy. And you weren't designed to handle it all. Instead, pause, even now. Imagine placing those things into God's hands, not because you're giving up on them, but because you're inviting Him into them. That shift changes everything. The moment you let Him take the lead is the moment the weight begins to lift, even if nothing else around you has changed. And if you think trust means everything will immediately feel better, let's clarify something important. Trust doesn't always change the circumstance. It changes you. It makes you steady in the chaos, soft in the heartbreak, humble in the pressure. And that transformation is often more miraculous than any external breakthrough. Many people pray for open doors, but few prepare their hearts for closed ones. What if trust also means believing that closed doors can be holy too? That not every no is a rejection. Sometimes it's redirection. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's the very proof that God sees more than you do. The spiritual life is not about getting God to do what we want. It's about learning to want what God is doing, even when we don't yet understand it. That's the hard part. That's where trust stretches you. You may not see the full picture yet, but you don't need to. That's not your role. Your role is to walk faithfully, with integrity and humility, trusting that God will unfold what needs to be revealed in His timing. The more you lean into surrender, the more clearly you'll see that obedience is never wasted. Even when it feels unseen, even when it looks small, even when others don't applaud it. Obedience is a seed, and trust is the soil where it grows. You may not get applause for trusting God in silence. You may not get affirmation for laying down your fears every morning, but heaven sees. And the quiet victories, those internal, invisible decisions to choose trust over control, those are the victories that shape who you are. You've been fighting long enough, carrying too much for too long, and maybe no one sees the full depth of it, but God does. And He hasn't asked you to keep it all together. He's asked you to come to Him, not when you feel holy, not when you feel worthy, just as you are, exhausted, uncertain, overwhelmed. That's where trust begins. So let this be your reminder. Trust is not passivity. It is spiritual bravery. It's not weakness. It's holy confidence. And it does not grow in ease. It grows in surrender. When everything in you wants to reach for control, reach for Christ. When the fear gets loud, turn up the volume on faith. When you don't know what's next, step forward anyway, because He already does. He's never once failed to lead a trusting soul home. Let God be the defender you've been trying to be. You can only carry your armor for so long before it begins to crush you. It starts as self-protection. You tighten your words, build walls from silence, rehearse conversations that never happen just to feel prepared for battle. You smile to keep the peace, stay quiet to avoid the storm, and somewhere along the way, you begin believing that survival is the same thing as peace. But God never asked you to play defender of your own soul. We live in a world obsessed with defense, always ready to argue, prove, correct, retaliate. And not just online, but in our homes, in our memories, in our private thoughts where past wounds are replayed like courtroom trials. You try to defend your integrity, your intentions, your heart. You try to explain yourself before you're misunderstood. You try to shield yourself from disappointment before it arrives. But all this effort doesn't give peace, it steals it. Exodus 14:14 is a quiet interruption to that cycle. It says, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." And that is radically countercultural because everything you've been taught screams the opposite. Defend, clarify, prove, react. But God's way says, pause. Let me handle what your heart was never meant to carry alone. Stillness is not inaction. It's trust in motion. To stand still while injustice rings in your ears, to stay silent while rumors fly, to resist the need to fire back with clever words or self-defense that takes a strength no human can summon on their own. It requires a soul anchored in something more stable than applause or vindication. And here's the thing that often gets overlooked. Sometimes we step into battles that God never asked us to fight. Not every fight is holy. Not every conflict deserves your energy. And not every opinion needs your rebuttal. The urge to correct and control might feel righteous, but if it's rooted in fear, ego, or insecurity, it won't bear the fruit of peace. Shannon L. Alder said, "Never waste your time trying to explain who you are to people committed to misunderstanding you." That quote may sting a little, but it cuts to something honest. Some battles are won by walking away. Some clarity only comes in time. And some of the most courageous things you'll ever do will look like silence, not speeches. Of course, you'll be tempted to step in, to say just one more thing, to set the record straight, to rewrite the narrative someone else has spun. But in those moments, the question isn't, can I defend myself? It's, should I be the one doing it? Because there is someone who sees the full picture, The conversations behind closed doors, the motives that never made it into the spotlight, the purity behind your yes, the prayer behind your no, the pain behind your silence. God does not miss these things, and He has never once needed your help to be just. Romans 12:19 says it plainly. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. That's not a license to wish harm on those who hurt us. It's an invitation to step back and breathe. It's a reminder that you are not alone in your struggle for fairness, that God is not neutral when His children are mistreated, but His timing is different. His justice is not fueled by emotion or impulse. It's shaped by mercy, clarity, and eternity. Letting God defend you doesn't mean you don't speak up when led by the Spirit. It means you no longer carry the crushing weight of having to control how people see you or how life unfolds around you. It means you choose peace over pride, trust over tension. It means your confidence is no longer found in being right, but in being rooted. So if your name has been dragged through misunderstanding, if your best efforts have been twisted, if your silence has been misinterpreted, rest. God sees beyond it all. You don't have to rush to correct what only time and grace can clarify. And if you've been fighting battles inside your mind, old wounds, conversations that haunt you, memories where you wish you could go back and defend yourself better, let them go. That courtroom in your head is exhausting and it's not producing peace. Bring it all to the cross. Every word unsaid, every apology you never received, every false accusation, every regret. God knows how to untangle it far better than you. The hard part is, this kind of surrender doesn't look impressive. People might mistake it for weakness. They might think you're backing down or being passive. But let them wonder. You are not responsible for how others perceive your surrender. You are only responsible for where your heart rests. Because some victories are quiet. They happen in the spaces no one claps for, like choosing not to gossip in retaliation, like praying for someone who wounded you deeply, like releasing your need to be right in order to protect your peace. That is not weakness, that is spiritual fire. Sometimes God protects you not by stopping the storm, but by shielding your heart in the middle of it. Sometimes His defense is not about changing your critics, but strengthening your soul to rise above their noise. And sometimes what you think is loss is actually divine protection in disguise. He sees what you do in secret, the tears you hide, the restraint you exercise, the peace you protect by staying silent. And one day, even if not now, He will make all things clear. You are not unseen. You are not unguarded. You are not without defense. And the one who defends you does not lose battles. That doesn't mean you'll always be vindicated in the way you imagined, but it does mean you'll be covered in ways you didn't know you needed. Sometimes His defense looks like peace that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's a closed door that protected you from something that could have unraveled your soul. Sometimes it's the gift of forgetting what used to consume you. Defense doesn't always mean exposure of the truth in public. Sometimes it means healing in private. It means waking up one morning and realizing you're no longer tormented by the opinions or actions of people who once had power over your emotions. That's what God's defense does. It lifts the weight off your shoulders and places it into hands far more capable. So take your hands off the sword you weren't meant to carry. Release the version of yourself you've been trying to protect. Stop re-editing the story in your mind so you sound stronger, smarter, more justified. You don't need to win that way. You only need to stand. And when you feel like your voice is too small, your efforts too unseen, your heart too wounded, remember the God who raised dead things back to life is the same God who will restore what's been trampled in you. You are not left to fight alone. You never were. He is a shield. He is a fortress. He is the one who stands in the fire with you and declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." That promise is not about keeping you from all pain, but about preserving you through it. It's not about removing the battle, but about walking through it with divine strength. So don't waste your life trying to control the outcomes of every hard conversation. Don't spend your nights composing mental letters to people who misunderstood you. Don't spiral in the search for justice that only God can deliver. Let your posture speak louder than your words. Let your peace say what your mouth doesn't have to. Let your quiet confidence be the echo of a soul rooted in God's presence. And if you need a place to start, try this. Lord, I release my name into your hands. I release my reputation, my pain, my need to be understood. I trust that you see, you know, and you care. Defend me in ways I cannot. That prayer may feel simple, but it is fire in the spirit. Because every time you choose surrender over self-defense, you draw a little closer to the heart of Jesus, who was silent before his accusers, who absorbed pain without retaliation, who trusted the Father's justice more than human approval. You were never meant to be your own shield. And when you stop trying to be, you finally make space for God to rise as your defender. Let that be enough. Let Him be enough. Peace begins where control ends. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep can't fix, a kind that builds slowly, like fog gathering at the edges of your soul until one day you wake up and realize that peace is no longer something you feel. It's something you chase. And yet, the more you chase it, the further it seems to slip from reach. That's what happens when your peace is tied to your sense of control, because the harder you try to grip what was never yours to manage, the more restless you become. Peace was never designed to be earned by perfect plans. It was always meant to be received by open hands. And that shift from gripping to releasing is where everything changes. The psalmist writes it so clearly, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10, not be effective, not be productive, just still. But being still doesn't come naturally to most of us, especially not when life feels uncertain. We think stillness means apathy, or worse, weakness. But that verse isn't a call to inactivity, it's an invitation into trust. It's God saying, "Step out of the way, let me lead this time." Peace begins there, at the place where you finally stop trying to control what you were never meant to orchestrate. The world tells you to take charge, that if something's broken, you fix it. If something's unclear, you define it. If something's missing, you run after it. And yes, there's a place for action, for wisdom, for boldness. But when that action crosses into obsession, when wisdom becomes worry, when boldness morphs into manipulation, that's not strength anymore. That's fear disguised in ambition's clothing. George Mueller, a man who lived by radical faith, once said, "The beginning of anxiety is the end of faith, and the beginning of true faith is the end of anxiety." It's a hard truth, because most of us are living with anxiety not because our problems are too big, but because our trust is too small. Not intentionally, just reflexively. We've learned to believe that unless we intervene, things will fall apart. That unless we keep doing, planning, calculating, fixing, everything might crumble. But what if letting go doesn't lead to chaos? What if it leads to calm? What if God is better at holding your future than you are at predicting it? What if your deepest peace is waiting behind the door you're too afraid to stop holding shut? Peace doesn't come when everything finally works out. It comes when you realize that even if nothing changes, God is still good, still near, still enough. You don't have to have all the answers to feel anchored. You just need to know where to place your trust. And trust doesn't mean your heart won't still race sometimes. It doesn't mean you'll always feel strong. It simply means you know where to run when you don't. That's peace, not perfection, but presence. You've likely spent a lot of time trying to make life feel safe. And who could blame you? Life has been loud, messy, unpredictable. So you do what you know. You try to control the pieces. You manage relationships, schedules, finances, even your prayers, all in the hope that if you can keep things predictable, you can keep your heart from being hurt. But predictability is not the same as peace. It might numb the noise for a while, but it will never give you the depth of calm that comes from surrender. Because real peace comes from knowing you are held, not from holding everything together. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Nothing can bring you peace but the triumph of principles." And at the core of a life anchored in faith is this principle: God is sovereign, and He is good. And even when you can't see how those two truths fit together, they do. You weren't designed to figure it all out. You were designed to rest in the one who already has. Stillness isn't weakness, it's worship. And when you stop long enough to breathe, to open your hands, to say, even trembling, "I can't carry this anymore," something happens. Not always around you, but within you. The chaos outside may continue, but the war inside begins to quiet. Because peace isn't the absence of trouble, it's the presence of God within it. You might be thinking, "But I've tried letting go before, and things didn't get easier." You're not alone in that. Surrender doesn't always simplify your circumstances. Sometimes it makes things feel harder at first, because you're detoxing from the illusion of control, and just like any detox, it's uncomfortable. You feel exposed, vulnerable, maybe even irresponsible. But over time, your spirit starts to breathe again. Your mind clears. Your prayers deepen. Your decisions slow down and align more closely with grace. This is not about ignoring your responsibilities. It's about recognizing the limits of your reach. You still show up. You still act with integrity, but you don't carry the burden of outcome. You sow seeds, but trust God with the rain. You do the next right thing, but trust God with the result. That's how peace begins, not by doing less, but by needing less control. That's why people who walk closely with God often carry a quiet strength. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's unshakable. Because their confidence isn't built on everything going right. It's built on knowing who's in charge when things go wrong. You don't have to keep spinning every plate. You don't have to brace for impact every time your phone rings. You don't have to sleep with worry under your pillow and wake up with it in your chest. You can begin to loosen your grip one thought at a time, one prayer at a time, one choice at a time. And in those moments, small as they seem, you'll begin to notice something shift. The fear doesn't speak quite as loudly. The pressure doesn't feel quite as suffocating. And that still, steady whisper, the voice of peace, begins to rise above the noise. That's not accidental. That's fruit. Fruit of release. Fruit of trust. Fruit of communion with the God who promised not to remove all storms, but to stay with you in each one. There's a freedom that comes when you finally stop treating every tension like a test you have to pass. When you stop seeing every delay as punishment. When you stop assuming that peace is only for people who have figured everything out. You are allowed to breathe before the miracle. You are allowed to rest while the answers are still unclear. You are allowed to feel calm even if your hands are empty, because what fills your heart is not found in control. It's found in connection. In the quiet moments where you whisper, "I don't know, Lord, but I'm choosing to trust you anyway." That's peace, and that's power. It doesn't mean the chaos stops. It means the chaos no longer dictates your posture. It means your identity is no longer tied to your productivity, your predictability, or your performance. It means you've discovered something deeper, that when everything is shaking, your soul can still stand still. So today, if your heart is frayed, if your thoughts feel tangled, if you've been grasping for answers that won't come, take one deep spiritual step. Release. Not because you figured it all out, but because you're tired of pretending you have. Peace begins where control ends, and where peace begins, grace enters. Not just the grace to endure, but the grace to rebuild, to start again with less fear and more faith, to rise not because everything is fixed, but because your soul has been quieted. Be still and know, not just know about God, but know Him. In that quiet, in that release, in that sacred in-between space where your strength ends and His begins, let Him meet you there. Let Him show you that surrender isn't a sign of weakness, it's the birthplace of freedom. And let today be the beginning of a new kind of strength, one not built by control, but by peace. Your job is to obey. God's job is the outcome. When you're weary, there's a part of you that just wants results. You want the door to open. You want the situation to change. You want something, anything, to prove that your prayers are working, that your faith is moving mountains, that your tears haven't gone unnoticed. It's a deep ache, and it's human. But sometimes, without meaning to, that ache starts to twist your perspective. You begin believing that God's love for you must be reflected in the outcomes you can measure, that the blessing must come quickly, that the reward should match your obedience in timing and size. But the truth is much harder and much more freeing. Your job is obedience. God's job is the outcome. It sounds simple, but living that out, that's the battlefield of faith, especially when everything in you craves control, especially when you've done everything right. And still, the answer is silence, or delay, or loss. Tony Evans put it this way: success is doing what God told you to do, how He told you to do it, and when He told you to do it. That's a hard kind of success to measure with human eyes. It doesn't always come with applause or breakthrough, but it always comes with peace. Because when your focus shifts from what you're getting to who you're becoming, everything starts to fall into place. Sometimes what God is doing in you is more important than what He's doing for you. That's the heart of surrender. It's choosing to walk in obedience, not because you're guaranteed a reward, but because you've already been rescued. It's remembering that you are not working for favor, you're working from it. That your value doesn't rise and fall with your results. That every act of faith, no matter how small, plants something eternal. Jesus said in Matthew 6:34, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." He didn't say that to dismiss your pain. He said it to anchor your soul, because when you start living in a future you can't control, you lose the ability to be faithful where your feet actually are. Today is holy. Today is the only place obedience can happen. You don't obey in theory. You obey in real, messy, unfiltered life. You obey when you show up for that job you don't feel seen in. You obey when you offer kindness to someone who's never returned it. You obey when you pray even when it feels like no one's listening. That's the kind of obedience heaven celebrates. And when you stop trying to control the outcomes, you get your joy back, because results are fragile. They can change, they can disappoint. But obedience, that's fireproof. It's rooted in a deeper soil. And even if you never see the fruit in this life, the act of trusting God enough to do what He asks, that transforms you, that builds the kind of character you can't fake, that opens the door for God to move in ways you never imagined. Oswald Chambers wrote, "It is not the greatness of our tasks, but the faithfulness in them that God honors." You may never get a headline for your faithfulness. You may not trend, go viral, or be praised. But if God sees it, it matters. And He sees everything. The enemy of your soul would love nothing more than to make you believe that small faithfulness is insignificant. That if you're not seeing results, you must be doing something wrong. That if the outcome doesn't match your expectations, you should stop trying. But don't buy that lie. You are not chasing results. You are following a Savior, and He never once measured your worth by your performance. Obedience is the daily courage to say, even if it doesn't go my way, I will still follow you. That's not easy. Especially when waiting feels endless, especially when you see others getting what you prayed for, especially when you start asking questions like, why not me? Or what am I missing? But in those moments, that's where the deepest growth happens, because it's no longer about what you're hoping to get. It's about who you're trusting to carry you. You obey, not because you understand, but because you believe He's worthy. You obey not to manipulate God's hand, but to honor His heart. And when that shift happens, peace rushes in, because now your joy isn't tied to what's next. It's rooted in what's eternal. Now your hope isn't fragile. It's anchored in the faithfulness of the one who doesn't forget a single act of obedience done in His name. The Bible is full of people who obeyed without knowing the outcome. Abraham, who left everything familiar because God told him to. Moses, who led a people out of slavery with no map. Mary, who said yes to the impossible. None of them saw the full picture, but all of them were honored, not for their control, but for their trust. You're part of that same legacy. You don't need certainty to be faithful. You just need to keep walking, even when your questions feel louder than your confidence. And if you've been faithful without recognition, if you've obeyed and still felt overlooked, if you've sacrificed and seen no reward, know this: heaven is keeping better records than earth ever will. Your prayers matter. Your yes matters. Your quiet sacrifices matter. Even if no one claps, God sees. And He promises that nothing offered in love is ever wasted. It's okay to long for the outcome. It's okay to want the breakthrough, the provision, the healing. But don't let that longing become your master. Let obedience be your joy, because that's where freedom lives, in doing what God asks and leaving the rest to Him. You are not responsible for results. You are responsible for the posture of your heart. And when your heart is surrendered, peace flows. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is placed in His hands. So if today feels heavy with questions and short on answers, if the waiting has worn you thin, if you've been trying so hard to hold it all together while praying for something to break through, then this is your invitation. Not to do more, not to fix it faster, but to obey with peace, not pressure. To trust that God honors what no one else sees. To believe that He is working, even when you don't see the result. Because your job is to show up, to trust, to obey, and to rest in the truth that the outcome belongs to Him. That's not defeat. That's holy confidence. Let go of what you can't control. Let God handle the rest and walk forward lighter.